Delicious. Hi, I'm Tom Spellman with Dave Wilson Nursery. We're here in the San Joaquin Valley this morning at our young backyard orchard style planting. The planting's been in now for almost 17 months. So this is second leaf and our second summer. We're going to do a little bit of summer pruning today to keep the trees in balance and check. Just like I've always thought on backyard orchard style plantings, it really finishes off, gets to that size where you want to start to maintain it and keep it size control maintained in its second year. So this middle of summer pruning, we're going to come back to about 5 feet tall, or just a little under or above 5 feet, and let one more flush of growth come out through the rest of the summer. And that's pretty much going to be our finished mature size. So from this point on, after this pruning, we'll be maintaining that size and always coming back to that preferred size so that the maintenance is easy, harvest is easy. Everything we need to do can be done right here from the ground. The first varieties that we're going to tackle this morning are Plums and Pluots. And these were planted in a hedgerow style at 5 feet on center. So what we want to do is we want to keep the sides sheared so that we maintain that hedge-like appearance and choose our top size. So the first two varieties are Splash and Emerald Drop, and we actually had a reasonable fruit set on both this year. The Splash are just about gone, but there's still some real nice ones here. Delicious piece of fruit. Amazing to get this much production off of trees that have only been in the ground now for one full season. But I really didn't even expect to get fruit here, but since we did, we'll take advantage of it. So the first thing I'm going to do here on the hedgerow is I'm going to work my way down the side. And I'm just going to take this long lanky growth back, just so that we can really start to maintain that boxy, hedgy look. I don't want this to go too far out into our walkway. I don't have to be real formal about this. I actually could do it with a pair of hedge clippers if I wanted to, but we'll just come in here with the Felcos this morning and do a little bit of check pruning. Here's a nice Emerald Drop. Perfect. Emerald Drop is one of those varieties that when you look at it on the tree, it never looks ripe. It always has this kind of a greenish color. Maybe gets a little bit yellow right towards the end, but boy, when you bite into it, that's a spectacular piece of fruit. I think you guys know my philosophy on backyard orchard culture, where I like to really keep it simple. I tend to oversimplify some things for people. I've had a lot of comments coming in where people have said, hey, show us more detail. What I really want to emphasize with this type of pruning is you don't need to be detail oriented. And I'm not telling anybody not to be detail oriented. You can be as detail oriented as you want, but I want to show how simple it can be. I want to show that anybody can maintain a backyard style orchard without having to have a lot of horticultural knowledge. All you really need to do is choose the right varieties for your area, choose the right rootstocks for your soil and climate adaptability, and keep the trees pruned to a size that's manageable for you. Okay, that pretty much takes care of our side pruning. Now we'll go back up to the first tree and we'll start the top. All I really want to do is take the top out of these, and I'm going to come back right about to my eye level. That's a good key for me to go through. I have that same perspective on all the trees as I walk through. I'm not going to do a whole lot of interior work today. I don't want to open these up to sunburn. So what I'm going to do is just take the top off. We'll come back this winter and we'll open up our centers a little bit more so that we have better light exposure and air movement so that next year's crop will ripen up properly. But right now, all I'm going to do is take the top out. Now, I don't have to hit every branch. I just really want to make sure that I'm checking the vigor. I want to allow for the next flush of growth to give me that nice finished shape, and then we'll come back in the winter, take a little bit more out of the center. There are actually a lot of different reasons to summer prune. One of the main reasons to summer prune, of course, is to maintain a size that's manageable for you. But what a lot of people don't realize is you can summer prune before the fruit has come off the tree. We're choosing a size and keeping the tree maintained to that size. So as long as we're doing that every year, all the growth that's above our chosen size isn't going to be fruiting wood anyway. It's going to be wood that's going to be removed at least twice a year. So by summer pruning now, while there's still fruit on the tree, we actually allow for better light exposure and better air movement so that this young fruit will ripen up a better quality than it would if we hadn't done this summer pruning early. This is one of the favored varieties here at the nursery. This is Flavor Finale. And this is the last pluot to ripen up. It's the end of the season variety. They're already starting to get a little bit red color now in July, but they're going to hold on the tree for 3 more months. So we want to make sure that we give this one plenty of light exposure and air movement, because this is a real special variety here. Right next to Flavor Finale, we've got our earliest variety. This is Flavor Ossa. Well, the fruit's been gone on Flavor Ossa now for over a month. It's a nice early season, dark red interior, dark red exterior. The first pluot to hit the market. The commercial growers, the farmers market guys are using it, and it's one of those varieties that we always look forward to here because it's the first one to come on. So it's the first pluot that we get to eat. Well, there we have it. Probably 7 or 8 minutes worth of time. I pruned 6 trees and have everything in this row now size controlled for the rest of the summer. This is our multi-planted cherry combination. There's 4 cherries in this one small raised bed. The raised bed's 4 by 6. And what I want to make sure I do on these is I want to keep the center clear. So before I do a whole lot of topping or anything else, I'm going to come in and take back some of this growth that's growing in towards the center. I don't need a whole lot of room, but I want to be able to get in here when I need to and just walk through this combination. So just a little bit of space, a little bit more light exposure, and I'm good with that. The varieties here on the east side are Sweetheart and Utah Giant. We're seeing just a little bit of heat damage on the Utah Giant here, and that's typical for cherries. They really don't like the San Joaquin Valley heat that we have, and this one's on the east side and is the weakest of the 4 trees, so I would expect to see a little bit of damage on that. But it's no damage to the wood, it's just a little bit of damage to the foliage. So here's an example of something that you might be confused by. You might think that that's a fungus problem or a bacterial problem, or maybe there was some sort of mite damage, but in fact it's really only a little bit of sun stress. And what you want to look for in sun stress is it's going to happen right after a heat spike. Last week or 2 weeks ago we had well over 100 degrees, up 104, 105, even 106, and that's when this happened. So we're not going to take too much growth out of here because we don't really want to open this up to too much light exposure, and for fear that we might have more sun damage. So just a little bit of opening up in the center, and then a little bit of work on taking out a little bit of this interruptive structure, some of the growth that grows in toward the center and interrupts with other branches, and then maybe a little bit of tipping up here. These trees have done really well. They put on a really nice flush of growth this year, and we're developing lots and lots of spur wood. In fact, look at this Utah Giant. This branch right here, every one of these little clusters is a fruiting spur, so we're going to have lots of fruit in here next year. I don't want to stop that or interrupt that, so I want to make sure that I'm taking that into consideration on these trees, not to prune back too much. Now in the back row we've got our Mini Royal and Royal Lee, and these are vigorous varieties anyway. These are all on a dwarfing rootstock here, but still we're getting a lot more growth out of the Mini Royal and Royal Lee, so I'm going to be a little more aggressive on them to bring them back down to a balance with the other varieties, but still making sure that I'm not opening it up too much to allow for too much light exposure and potentially sun damaging these trees in the next few weeks. This was a great year down in Southern California for Mini Royal and Royal Lee. The trees have been out on the market now for 3 years, so a lot of people had trees that had been in the ground for their second and even third season. And we had great reports on people in very low chill or almost no chill areas that had great crops on Mini Royal and Royal Lee. I'm really excited about these varieties. I think this is an example where Zager's breeding program has changed the market on cherries. We can now grow cherries in areas where we could never grow cherries before. Well, this is our 4-in-1 multi-planted peach and nectarine combination. We've got Tropic Snow Early Peach, we have Spice Z Nectaplum, we have Nectar Original Peach right here, and we have an early Desert Dawn Nectarine. So we got a fair amount of fruit off of all these trees this year. We were eating some Spice Z yesterday. Here's a really nice nectar. There were probably 20 or 25 of these on the tree. Oh, that is absolutely delicious. Dead ripe, just a wonderful piece of fruit. The birds liked it. They took a little bit off the top already, but I'll share with the birds. So again, on these, they're close planted. They're about 36 inches apart, 4 trees in the space of 1. We want to make sure that we're taking size control into consideration on these, and they're already too big. You know, they've already grown way out of bounds for what I'd like to see. So I'm going to come back to about my eye level on these. So we're going to look right about here and just start taking the top out. A little bit of attention on the outside and the bigger branches I'm paying to outward growing buds, but not a whole lot. We got plenty of time for recovery on this. These trees are going to be beautiful when they go dormant this fall. Next spring we'll get that nice finished flush of growth, so by this time next summer these trees will be as big as we'll ever want them to get. Just kind of keeping the whole combination in check so that nothing can dominate this combination. One of the things that you really want to take into consideration on a 2-in-1, 3-in-1, 4-in-1 planting is all the trees should be uniform. We never want to let one tree get any larger than anything else, so no variety should be able to dominate that combination. Nice thing about a spacing like this is I can actually go right in and work the center of this combination just as easy as I can work the outside. So I like to have enough spacing where I can actually get in and do work on the inside, harvest fruit on the inside, make sure I'm taking air movement into consideration, and keeping everything in check and balance. You might remember when we planted this combination, we all loved Spice Z so much, we actually gave Spice Z the dominant position in this collection, the southwest corner, so that it's going to get more sun and light exposure and air movement than almost anything. And I still think that was a good choice. Spice Z is one of my absolute favorite varieties, but you know, still we're going to keep it in check. Nothing allowed to get any bigger than the chosen size. So we'll keep all these varieties down to manageable. And you know, you've got to remember, these trees are really still just teenagers. These trees are only 16 and a half, 17 months in the ground, so they've got lots and lots of time and lots of places to go and lots of growing to do, and you know, we just want to make sure that we're checking vigor before it gets too vigorous. We don't want to have to take out too much at any one given time. We just want to maintain them to a size that's manageable. So the first 2 years in the ground are really dedicated to achieving that chosen size and achieving that structure that we can get plenty of fruit from and keep manageable for the future. You might remember when we planted our 4-in-1 peach nectarine combination, we put them all in on compatible rootstocks, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to grow at the same rate. You know, trees are like any other living thing. You're going to get one that's going to want to outgrow the others, and you know, the dominant position, that southwest corner, is always going to provide a little bit more of a better growing condition for that particular tree. So keeping vigor in check is really important to balance out this combination. You need to make sure that you're paying special attention to that and not letting any one variety dominate this combination. So So that's good. Everything about 5.5 feet. Everything growing to a nice balance. We had some fruit on it this season. The trees are good, lots of air movement, open centered a little bit. Not enough topping where there's going to be any chance of any sunburn damage for the rest of the season. We'll come back and look at these in 6 months. This is our 2-in-1 multiple budded pluot. This is a Dapple Dandy Flavor Queen. And we've got some pretty nice Dapple Dandy fruit on here just about ready. Probably another couple weeks before it's ready to be harvested. And this one's put out a fair amount of growth. Somebody already pinched it a little bit, but I want to do a little bit more than that. I don't like this growth where it's growing back in toward the center and crisscrossing, so I'm going to take that out altogether. This branch is kind of doing the same thing. I'll take that out altogether. We're pretty good in the center. There's not a whole lot of growth coming in toward the center, so I'm just gonna check the tips a little bit on this, just so that we don't have too much vigor for the rest of the season. Maybe I can take that one out. So that's about it, 30 seconds, and we've got this one cleaned up for the summer. We'll be sure to come back in a couple of weeks and try some of this fruit out. Here's a 3-in-1 pluot. This one is Splash, Flavor Grenade, and Geo Pride. All 3 good varieties. Here's the Grenade branch. It's kind of the least vigorous of the 3, and it's on the east side. So I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive on the other 2, just so that we get a little better balance out of this tree. I want to make sure that we're not overpowering that Flavor Grenade, because that's a good variety, and we want to make sure that we maintain that. Actually, you can see in here it's already starting to develop a lot of nice fruiting wood down here on these little secondary spurs. We're going to have a lot of fruit next year. There's some couple of nice grenades in here and a nice couple of Geo Prides on here that are just about ready. So we need to make sure that we're coming back and taking a look at this tree in a couple of weeks so that we can eat some fruit. This is our 5-in-1 multiple budded Pride Series peach. So we have May Pride, Eva's Pride, June Pride, Mid Pride, and August Pride. So 3 months worth of successive ripening, nice big sized yellow fleshed freestone Alberta style peaches that are just wonderful. And we want to make sure that we really maintain this tree well. So I'm going to be a little more careful with this one. The grafts are balancing out nice. We've done a little bit of work on this tree already this season. It's already been tipped once, and the center's opened up nice here on the southwest side so that we get a little bit more light exposure. So all I'm really going to do on this one right now is just a little bit of work around the bottom and around the outside. I want to take some of this outer growth back a little bit. I don't really want to do much to the size on this one right now because it's looking pretty good. We can make a few little cuts here and there just to check vigor a little bit, but not a whole lot. Mainly I want to make sure that the varieties are growing to a balance, and we've pretty much already got that achieved. It's already pretty well balanced out. Eva's Pride over here on the west side. Lots of nice growth on Eva's Pride. A little broken branch here. I think we had a little too much fruit in there this year because we all like Eva's Pride. We don't want to waste any of that. So this type of pruning will allow for just a little bit more light exposure down around the base. I'm not taking away enough where I'm making the trunk susceptible to sunburn damage. I just want a little bit more air movement and a little bit more of an open style to it. So real careful with this tree not to overdo it. But this is one, when you have a 5-in-1 like this, the more grafts that are on a tree or the more varieties that are in a combination, it's probably most important to spend a little more time and do a little bit less work every time. So I would probably look at this tree 3 or 4 times every summer and just make little cuts instead of trying to make any real big cuts. Just keep it in balance. The most important thing, always keep the varieties to a balance. This is our fence row of figs, and I'm basically not going to do anything to these right now. It's midsummer. Figs have a lot of latexy, milky sap that secretes during the summer. In fact, I'll just make one quick cut to show that point. You can see all that sap, that milky sap that just drips out of there. So the last thing we want to do is get ourselves tangled up in that. So we're not going to do anything to the figs in the summer. We do have a fairly decent crop of fruit on them, so we'll be enjoying some figs later on in the fall, and we'll come back and do a winter pruning on these. This is our 3-wire espaliered row here. We've been working on this a little bit through the season already, but I want to just come back in now and maybe just check the vigor on this Flavor Delight apium. So not a whole lot of work. Structurally, it's starting to look pretty good. So I want to just do a little bit of pinching just to keep everything in balance. We should have a fair amount of fruiting wood on this tree next season. We had a few fruit on it this spring. We just don't want it to get too vigorous or out of balance. Doesn't need a whole lot. This is another situation where you want to work on this tree several times through the season. You don't want to come in and do drastic work on it. You don't want to let it grow 4 or 5 feet out and then come back in and make drastic cuts. Work on it 3 or 4 times through the summer. Make little cuts, just short cuts. Just keep everything in check and balance so that you develop that structure and establish that form and stick to that form. This is our burgundy plum espalier. It's looking nice and balanced. We don't have too much rogue growth on here, but again, just a little bit of check and balance just to make sure that we're keeping it uniform and not letting anything get too far ahead. We do have, I know that there was a lot more fruit on here, but there's still a fair amount of fruit on here. Nice size burgundies for a tree that's only been in the ground for 17 months. Well, I'm sure enjoying my lunch out here today. This is our little young mini Royal and Royal Lee that we put in. And when we put these in, we decided to kind of stair step them. I want to keep the mini Royal shorter and bushier and let the Royal Lee get a little more size on it. So we topped the mini Royal shorter, and it's considerably bushier. So I'm just going to take a couple of snips out of the center and just tip it a little bit, not much. On the Royal Lee, I'm going to leave the height then and just tip it a little bit. So we want to kind of have that stair step size on these two. I want this one to be half the size or half the height of the Royal Lee. What also I'll do right now is not remove it completely, but make a couple of snips on this growth that's down real low at the base. And we can leave that on. That's going to help give us a little bit of sunburn protection there, and it'll also help to increase the vigor. These varieties are so precocious. They're already starting to set spur wood on them. We'll definitely get some cherries next season, and these have only been in the ground now for less than 6 months. Well, this is another combination that we added kind of after the fact. This is apricot tomcot, apricot gold-kissed, and plumcot flavorella. Now the gold-kissed is the pollinizer for the flavorella, and the tomcot's just here because we love the fruit. Flavorella is an absolutely delicious variety and pollinates very well with gold-kissed. So what we want to do on this combination right now, just a little bit of check and balance. This tomcot seems to have a little more vigor in toward the center, so I'm going to take a little bit of that out. I don't want too much of that vigorous growth interrupting, and just do a little bit of side work on it. It has the west face on this combination, so it can definitely be the most vigorous variety. And then on the flavorella, maybe just a little bit of growth in toward the center. So that's about it. Just a minute's worth of work on the 3-in-1 combination, on the young combination, getting everything growing in the right direction. Summer pruning is something that you're going to do every year, and you can do it several times throughout the year. You don't need to be limited to Trees that are already past their fruiting stage, you can prune early. You can incorporate summer pruning into some of your thinning in May and even early June. And you can go out several times through the summer and do a little bit of work at a time just to keep things in check, just to keep things in balance so that they're manageable for you. And manageable for me, again, 7.5, 8 feet tall is my final mature size of almost all the trees in my orchard. Manageable for you is whatever works for you. There are no rules to this, and you can grow your trees to any size that you feel manageable. So have fun with it. Don't be intimidated by summer pruning. Keep your trees balanced and size controlled so you can do most of your work from the ground. Enjoy fresh fruit every day of the year.